What is up, guys, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things Fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 27, we'll let you know about the latest news surrounding High Noon Fantasy, a look back at the week that was in both our listener and our host league, take a look at Stage 4, Week 2's biggest performers, and share our picks for some of this week's marquee games. Now, before we can jump into the agenda for tonight and introduce you to my co-hosts, let me just take a quick moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So as you guys can tell, again, we do have a full house tonight. All co-hosts are on deck, and, last week had a lot of shenanigans. We saw the situation in regards to the meta. We got a clearer picture of what composition is going to be ran, that being the Dice School comp, as Spider had dubbed it, which was also shown on the Overwatch League broadcast. There's a lot of Mei, a lot of Reaper, a ton of Orisa, and a pretty healthy mix of support play. But looking back, guys, how's the week been treating you, Ed? Let's go ahead and start with you.
This week's been awesome. I'm going to start the show off saying I've taken over the crown of this podcast.
The thing is, we need to see if anyone can actually go back to back.
See, the thing is, I don't have any doubt that I will. All I know is that Ramses won't.
Wah. One of my players didn't play this game. Oh, yeah.
So you won on a technicality, and then when we played head-to-head where everyone played, I win.
This is true.
So that's, I'm just going to throw that out there. And I'm pretty sure I beat you every day of the week in each league we were in.
Nope, not Saturday. Nope. One of the days I thought I beat you, but I have to go check.
All right, fine.
1 out of 3. That wasn't great. It wasn't great. Ed won the week. Ed won the week.
Yes. It was an insane week in Overwatch, which I'm sure we'll talk about, where I think everyone's pick'ems were just screwed.
For a couple of games. I wouldn't say across the board.
Not across the board. It's just like a lot of people's pick'ems were screwed, but when those kind of picks are messed up, everyone gets it wrong.
Right.
How many people out there had the Titans losing? 2%? 3%?
2 people.
Yeah, so everyone's was kind of screwed. So we had that, and then the new Hearthstone expansion dropped today, so that's been a lot of fun. Been playing that, so it's been fun. And then now I'm starting to get into the fantasy football mode because I got drafts not this weekend, but the next 3 weekends after that. Culminating with my last one is we rented a house across the street from Lambeau Field. And so we're 50 feet, 75 feet from Lambeau Field, and that's where we're going to have our fantasy football draft this year.
Is there a reason for that?
All right, so if you've never been to Lambeau Field, it's a very weird situation where it's legit in the middle of a neighborhood. Across the street from Lambeau Field is...
Yeah, well, I got that, but what I'm asking is, why rent a house close to Lambeau Field? Is there something special that goes on there?
So, not at Lambeau, but with my league in particular, we started this league. This is our 14th year in the league with the same 12 guys. And we're all scattered now throughout the state. Most of us, married with kids. And this is, our weekend getaway without the family, without the kids. To just get together, have a lot of fun, drink, cook out, shoot the shit, catch up, all that kind of stuff. So we rotate it around the state, and it's always an overnight thing. Sometimes we're at the casinos. Sometimes we go to brewer games, or, this year it just happens to be in Green Bay, and then next year is already booked. We're doing Vegas.
So it's kind of like yuppie camping.
Yeah, basically.
Cool. That sounds
fun
fun to me, because camping does not sound fun.
Yeah. It's a house that sleeps 20 people, so there's 20 beds.
It's like a mega Airbnb almost.
Exactly. And then in Vegas, I think we have 8 hotel rooms booked already for all of us and stuff like that. And then we're renting out a cabana at Top Golf in Vegas. So that should be a lot of fun. But yeah, no, it's definitely fantasy season. Like August is always the biggest fantasy season, and now I'm throwing fantasy Overwatch into my fantasy football. Like fantasy golf just ended, which I did win $150 on.
All right. Enough about fantasy.
No fantasy golf talk.
No, let's just
Yeah,
keep it to
get your
NFL
own
and maybe
podcast for that
baseball.
Fine.
For examples.
Fine. All right, we can move on. Talk to other people, I guess.
I guess, huh? Bob, I know you've had a pretty busy week here as of late. How the week treat you, bud?
Yeah, it's been a pretty wild week. I got to see how politicians get sworn in Kansas City. I got to see a city council meeting. I got to meet the mayor, go to a gala, and it was all pretty interesting stuff that I had never been part of. But now the part of my family is a city councilman. I guess I'll be attending a lot of them over the next few years. But besides that, for fantasy, unfortunately, doing all of that, I wasn't able to play many games. I did get into our 1v1, but I had no idea there was going to be so much asked of me and so much time taken up over the weekend. I figured I'd have time to set some lineups at some point, but
Right.
no, so I didn't get to do that. But I did get to watch some games when I got back, but I'm still kind of behind, so I'll probably be leaning on you guys quite a bit this episode here. But speaking of other fantasy stuff, you said you've been together with your league for 14 years. I'm canceling the league that I've run for the last 13.
What?
Yeah, content creation takes a lot of time, and running that league, since it involves money, takes a lot of time and a lot of politics and everything else. And so I've got to lay the hat down, and sometimes all good things must come to an end. But what about you, Ramses? What have you been up to?
So this week was not as good fantasy wise as last week was, being that I only beat Ed on one day in a non network related league. But it's been pretty good. I've been trying to hit the arena as many times as I can before everything moves away from Burbank.
So,
and then
quick question on that, Ramses. Did you bring any signage?
No, I didn't. I promised I wanted to do one. I want to get like a big like cardboard cutout of like Ed's head on it, and like we'll put a little like cowboy hat on it. And I didn't have time to go to Kinko's before I went.
BlizzCon, just bring it to BlizzCon.
See, that's
you need the big head like they had at the Atlanta Reign home game.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally like this big. Andres has one of Defred.
This is all my quest to get a Twitch emote of just Ed's head doing something.
I make a lot of facial expressions like when I stream, so that's like the perfect time to do it.
It's
You
just
gotta-
like
you just gotta clip it.
it's just like when Death. I had pulled my back out, and Deathblow took a photo of me cringing, and then made it a emoji in his server called Pain in the Bob.
Yeah,
I'm
like
posting it here for you so you can see it. But yeah,
When
it's
I
like
had
grimacing.
when I like play
I love this.
Overwatch, I'll sometimes like if I have to duck something, I'll be like
Mm.
in real life, like I'm gonna
You-
duck it.
you
in
Mario
real
Kart
life
it, like,
outside
you-
of the game.
I mean,
I do the same thing. I do the
I had
same
some-
exact thing.
I had some real pain in the bob this week actually because I was there live to watch Houston like scratch and claw against Philly to make Havana like go into overtime,
Mm-hmm.
only to see them just get rolled immediately the next round. Like we're just sitting there in the seats being like, "This cannot be happening! Oh my gosh, this cannot be happening!" And then the round goes into overtime, and EQO and Carpe just decided they wanted to go home and just immediately obliterated Houston right afterwards. But we got to see Jake like absolutely destroy on the Junkrat again, which made my entire week. So
Well, we
Yeah.
also saw him get completely benched too. So take.
Yeah, that
for
was-
what it
Yeah,
is.
that was weird.
pretty annoyed about
Really
that. One.
weird.
But
'Cause
yeah,
it was
I'll-
I mean, was he sick? I've asked this question.
If there's one thing that like about the Outlaws that makes me like cringe harder than anything else for the team, is whenever they go, yeah, Linkser's on the Reaper for this game, and I'm like, ugh, immediately, like rounds
Wait,
over.
Are we sure Jake was supposed to be benched?
That
You
is a
don't even know.
great
Honest to
point,
God
my
question.
friend.
I-
That
you
is a
you can't even
great
know
point.
anymore. They finally have a submission for somebody finally submitted to buy them, so we'll see if that gets better in a couple months. But I don't know, dude. Being a Houston fan, like we were walking out of the stadium, my buddy goes, "You know what? Like, no offense, but like your team sucks." And I'm like, "Yeah, like it's the deal, but we roll with it."
Speaking of which, the dream died for you. Your Chicago team and my Denver team.
Not yet.
Houston-based.
Not yet. It has to be like
That's
approved, but it's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
It's lying in the coffin. It hasn't been buried yet.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a done deal at this point. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the news. So we do have some updates with High Noon Fantasy. So I know Matt's been putting a lot of work in on the back end there, and all the pick'em scores are updated now. I know he's been sorting through the scores based on the stage and also in the leaderboard, so all of that should be up to date. Right now, he is going through and applying the score patch fixes for the standard and the limited leagues to make sure all of those are up to date. So it looks like maybe we're like about a week out until things get back on track. So hopefully everything will be where they need to be here.
Right in time for playoffs. Yay.
Yeah.
And me and
unfortunately.
Ramses are tied. We are tied for the highest in, like, for the hosts and all
Oh,
that
okay.
stuff. Like, so we're both we're tied for like 23rd place.
According
Overall.
to on my on the Al recap one, you're 2 games ahead of Ramses, unless you just moved.
If you go to the top and click Pick'em leaders,
Mhm.
we both have 150.
Damn.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing: when
But you
look
have
at
182 on what I'm looking at.
oh, has he not updated the leaders? Okay,
I don't think.
that
Yeah,
may be it then.
you're beating
you're-
Ramses by.
you're up by 2.
Mhm.
Okay, he just hasn't updated the Pick'em leaders.
And I'm down below Ramses by 5 and below you by 7.
And honestly, like with the state of the parity in the league right now, 2 games honestly isn't that much of a stretch.
It's very easy to come back from.
Yeah, it's
Totem
literally.
isn't in my league here. I'm noticing, unless he's really bad.
He wouldn't have made different picks. I mean,
No, I'd
You would be right
I'd
next to
right
me.
up there.
I don't think
moving up.
you're. Yeah, I don't
Probably not
think
in that
you're
one.
in my league.
And-
That is bogus, Totem.
yeah,
I joined
like,
too many.
This is awkward.
It's not that awkward. But anyways, let's talk about what's been going down in our listener league and our host league. So obviously, guys, each week we've been doing a private contest between the 4 of us, as well as every Sunday we do have our listener league. And I have to say, like, across the board for the listener league, not the highest scoring this week. I know, like, the top performer finished with, like, 893. And I know my teams were kind of, like, all over the place, but in my case, I had Daco starting in one team, so that ended up getting a goose egg. I had Jake started in the other one, and that was a series that Jake actually got benched the entire series, so I put up a goose egg in that one. So needless to say, my highest point total was actually around 715, so not too much I could do about that one, plus, you know, Hureg kind of got bodied along with the Vancouver Titans against Justice, so that was also a thing that happened. But, you know, outside of that...
imagine getting 4-0'd by Washington Justice.
Imagine 2 of the only teams having never gotten 4-0'd to both get 4-0'd the same week.
That was the
Let
best
alone
part.
the same day.
That was the best part. Was they go, it's like, all right, so New York is in the sole possession of never getting 4-0, and then like a half hour later, we're like, reset the board. Like,
So Kesha is saying that she got her roommates to try out the listener league. So how did they do? I am just curious. I don't know what Bob's doing. Bob's shuffling around back there.
Bob's packing for another trip.
He's
apparently.
probably packing, but that's all good.
Yeah, I'm moving on Friday, so
Gotcha.
just trying to multitask.
Can I point out something about our listener league? So we're talking about our listener league on Sunday, and there was the winner. I don't know if you want to announce the winner.
Yeah, that was Dulky, who had
Dulky.
893.36.
893, so you'll probably get contacted by Foul about the prize. But I would like to point out that I had 2 teams place above all of your teams.
Mm-hmm. Must be nice having, more than 5 starters.
Yes. So, like, in Foul Play, I have 2 accounts. I have my account that actually counts, and then I have one screw-around account that I just screw with. And which, for in the future, any questions, anytime Blame Canada wins anything where there's prizes, he's not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that has been determined already. I told him about this. But I actually took 4th in that league with 871.77, and my Blame Canada scored 7th with 825. So, like, Ramses, not only did I beat you basically the whole week, I beat you twice in just this one league.
This is true.
I almost beat you 3 times. You outscored. So
He almost hit me with the Jordan 3-peat on that one. Wow.
So me and Totem did a fun little challenge this week where we went head to head 1v1.
So close.
In you could only spend 80 points.
Mm-hmm.
You had to come up with a team with 80 points. My 80-point team scored 8 points less than you, Ramses.
I know I'm personally, like, I'm having to get, like, and so you won fair and square. You beat me by a lot. I know this has actually been, Daily's been a lot of fun because, like we were talking about before the show, it's real. I've had to get better at kind of like mitigating my points to actually get the best possible value out of my players.
Right.
Because I'm so used to, like, all right, like I got my two big money players. Crap, I have like 60 points to get the rest of my team with. What do I do? So, and that's the whole point of Daily, is that you have to spread out your points to get the maximum utility out of it. So it's been something that I'm enjoying testing out. I know there's some days where I manage to strike and I do really well, and then there's some days, like literally every day except for Saturday, where it doesn't work out so well. But still placing pretty well in most leagues. Happy about it.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the winning lineup that we did see for our Listener League. That was with EQ and Carpe on the DPS line. We saw Gods and Spree for the tank positions, and we saw Boombox and Neko. Which is pretty interesting. We've had the Outlaws basically kind of like situated in who they're going to have on the off-tank position, so they're kind of like shying away from starting like Coolmet at this point. So Spree's basically coming in full-time, running a lot of like the Roadhog. And, Neko hasn't traditionally been someone that we've been putting a lot of stock into lately. And to an extent, I would say we've been kind of iffy on the Defiant as well. So God's actually put in some pretty strong performances across the board this past week as, Toronto pulled off a little bit of magic of their own. But Bob, looking back at the Listener League, how did your team fare this week? Were you able to go ahead and submit a lineup for that one, or was it just in the host league for you this week?
I was not able to. I mean, it's crazy being out of town and not being in your own space, but I got the update on my phone, I think from the Overwatch League app, or maybe it was a tweet or something, but I got it and I was like, dang it. Because, daily, like, you do get cut off even if you want to pick players that play later, which would be something that'd be kind of cool that they'd implement, where if I did forget, I just was screwed out of those players and I could still submit a lineup, but at the same time, I don't know how well that would work. It works good when you have a fantasy team to be able to still move people out before their games, but after other games have started. Don't know if it'd work well here because it just leave you more and more options later. Whereas if you see big point players scored really bad, you could jump in and really easily take some wins. So it'd be kind of a double-edged sword. But nope, I sucked it up this week. Pretty bad.
Yeah, so if you submitted the same lineup that you had for the host league, you probably would have been probably like 40-ish around that point. Just kind of like looking at how my team's fared, because like I did not do that well, obviously, because I had 5 starters and one player that got benched on both teams. So I finished at like 35th and 55th overall. So not a good look there. Actually, the host league point total was a lot better for some of us, actually, looking at just how we fared there. But Ed, I thought it was very funny. You and I were like, okay, we're just going to do this, 80-point team for shits and giggles, and we're going to see how it does. And out of the 5 teams that I submitted for that day, it ranked 3rd. So it's kind of middle of the pack. But then, like, our point differential, when all was said and done, was only, like, 0.6 fantasy points, which is really nothing. It was so close. And despite only having, I think we had like 2 of the same people on our lineups, I was not expecting it to be as close as it was.
No, I wasn't. I took some risks that we'll probably talk about a little later in regards to some low budget options that will still be low budget for probably the next week, maybe 2, that really kind of came out on top. Like, we're talking FRD, Spree, Guido. Like, those are some low budget players that are now getting full-time play in key positions that you can put in for a low price and then get those studs like Ichiro, Carpe, those kind of players. But like, yeah, like, so this was my $80 budget team. It was Hurrig, Erster, Spree and FRD, Boombox and Guido. Like, I was able to do that with 80 points. Because Guido costs like nothing. Same with FRD and Spree. So, like, those are what the things that you kind of have to look out for. I honestly thought we'd both go with the same tanks totem.
Right.
I thought you'd go Spree and FRD, but we went in different directions on that one.
Yeah, so looking at our host league, we had 3 point totals that were above 800. So Ed, I know you finished on top at 898.62. I finished in second with 860.4. Ramses had third at 832.8. And Bob, I know you kind of like rushed your lineup due to how busy you were, that weekend, and you finished with 783.01. Now looking at this, Bob, I know you actually went double main support with Custa and Coma, which
it was because I was
took
top
a big
heavy
hit.
on DPS.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea or just a comparison of like how that fared against like the other support duos on our teams, your duo ended up with 223 points, which was around 90 points behind basically all of our starting duos on the support line, which I'm pretty sure there wasn't too much fluctuation on who we actually selected there. And I know
Who was my DPS again?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay.
If someone else has it up.
It was Happy and Ding.
Okay.
You went actually.
Yeah, Dean was your top
You
performer.
didn't go heavy on DPS. You went heavy on tanks.
Tanks.
Well, you went with Space, who I know was the most expensive.
Yeah.
And then you went with a cheaper option with Gesture, but Space was the most expensive. I think he was more expensive than Ding, actually. So you went top heavy with DPS and tanks, and then kind of had to fill in your supports.
Yep.
Yeah, so I know for me, I had the lowest DPS total, at least with points. I had Shax and Nero starting. Nero's been pretty consistent. Shax is still seeing a little bit of split time with agilities for the Valiant. And those two finished with 241.18. But I did put up the highest point total for the tank duo, which was Hotba and Michelle, at 329, so that definitely made up for it. But I was definitely surprised to even come in a second there, just knowing that my DPS didn't quite carry at that point.
Tied for the top tank. Because I had Hotba and Michelle as well.
Yeah.
so just, I tied you in that.
We're not And like, I'm just trying to go from my
I know.
perspective. You know,
I just like to
comparing
point out
from
when
going
I'm
to the
on top.
low to the top on different lines.
Yes.
That's nice.
Tanks are the complete wild card, I've kind of come to realize, in all of daily fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, tanks are the ones you don't skimp on.
Hmm.
So, take that for what you will.
Don't be like me and end up with Sato as your starting tank, guys. When you're running that Sato and Fate tank line, and
I think Totem, you pointed this out earlier to me, and we might talk about this later, is one main tank finished in the top 25.
Which is an anomaly.
It is.
I mean,
Like,
I think Fate has probably done it once or twice.
Well, Fate, the reason you're seeing a lot of these main tanks high in point values is because it's not just what they've done in stage 4.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken into account what they're doing in stage 3. That's why Dako is so expensive still. It's because it's still taking into account what he does in stage 3.
that's why yeah.
So, like, a lot of these, like, I honestly don't go with main tanks and don't go with main supports. Like, that would be my biggest suggestion, is go with your off tanks and your flex supports, because DPS, as much as we may hate to admit it, there's so much, like, there's probably 10 people every day that you're just like, okay, I could probably start them. When there's really like 4 or 5 DPS or 4 or 5 flex supports or flex tanks that you actually want to start. So, like, Hot Buzz, one that's real low, FRD is real low, Spree's real low, Elsa was real low, Gargoyle is another one. So, just spewing that out there.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a closer look at player costs in just a little bit, but let's reflect on the week that was in regards to player performances. So, we definitely got like a clear indication of like who some of like the top roles are right now. So obviously, you know, Ed, like Flex Tank has kind of like been brought back to the level that we really expected at the start of Fantasy. Over, you know, the rest of the different roles out there. I know, like, I was looking at, like, the top 25 point earners this past week, you know, kind of, like, breaking it down based on a position, and the only main tank to actually finish with a top 25 score throughout those 4 days was Sharik. It was the only one. You know, there were a couple of people across the board that did finish in the top 25 twice, so, you know, you got players like Shax, Boombox was up there for the flex supports. Void has been doing really well as Surefour. But looking back, let's talk about like some of the biggest performances that we did see. And, you know, some of the biggest totals this week was actually not in 5-map series, which is pretty interesting. So why don't we take a look at that?
Yeah, so I will just get this out of the way. Shaz was our top performer of the week at 231 points, but he played 5 maps, so that's an anomaly. But our next 2 top were both flex tanks. And I think there are 2 flex tanks people were a little surprised with being top scorers. And the number 1 non-5 map score was Note from the Dallas Fuel, scored 226 points. Note really stepped it up. He didn't have to worry about flexing off Diva to play Sombra, or like getting benched because he's not playing Sombra, or something of that nature. So he really showed up. His Diva play was really good. Gods had a very good week. Gods is one of those weird, like, in case of emergency, break glass, start Gods. Because he has been average to below average in points for the past few weeks, and even in the last stage. But this week, he really kind of shot up when him and Sharik played. And then, you know, then you had Unko, 198 points, only played 4 maps. So Unko was our number 1 support, really, when you break it down, who didn't play 5 maps. And then, I mean, then you had, if you were to guess, who was your number 1 San Francisco Shock fantasy point getter for the week? Who would have guessed Architect? No one. No
No,
one.
no.
Okay. Yeah, no one would have guessed Architect because he hasn't been playing. So,
Well, but
like,
we knew he was gonna play. It's just you wouldn't have guessed he was gonna play Hanzo, right?
yeah, you weren't
Like
going to
you
guess
would have
that
guessed he was gonna
Architect.
play Widow, and Hanzo's
Yeah,
scoring some points at the moment.
yeah, nobody would have guessed Architect would have been the top DPS to play this week, fantasy wise. Like Architect, regardless of anyone who played 5 maps or not, Architect was the top DPS in the league this week. So you're definitely seeing some things kind of flip flop on their heads. Surefour has come back into the lineup, which he's been a staple, but like he hadn't been a staple.
He's starting every week again.
Starting every week again. The one that really kind of jumped out to me and is like somebody I would maybe target this week with slight hesitation is Mangachu.
Okay.
So Mangachu still is low in cost because before this week he hasn't been playing every single map. But I think this week Toronto was just like, you know what?
What did he play this week?
Oh, I don't know the exact characters.
Was he the May this week? Because May jumped to 40% played last week, which was up like 35%. This most recent week, May jumped into 70 some percent played,
Yeah,
another
she's the
30.
second most
jump.
picked this week behind
So
Orisa.
so many people are playing May now. I just wondered if they had him in the whole time because he was on May. I was just curious.
Yeah, I honestly can't recall off the top of my head. A lot of the games are blurry. I don't remember what each person played, but Mangachu did play all the matches in both their games, I believe. So that's somebody, he's still like the 14, 15, 16 point region for DPS, which is what you really need to find out. The only other person that I want to point out here is Corey. Corey is the new Jinmu. Like, let's be real. Like, everyone was in love with Jinmu stage 1, stage 2 fantasy wise because he played DPS, he got numbers. Corey is that new character that player that everyone's infatuated with. But right now, his point value for daily is low for what he's pumping out. So, like, he scored 191 points this week in 4 maps. That's pretty good. Like, especially in a 4-0. And now I get it. It's versus the Vancouver Titans. But they still 4-0'd. And I don't know. Get Corey while you can because soon he's going to be up there with EQO, Carpe.
Yeah, costing like
Axel.
20 points.
Yeah. Week 4, week 5, you're going to start to see all these like deals that you have out there. Your Surefours, your Mangachus, your Coreys, your FRD, your Gods are going to skyrocket in price. And if you think you have a hard time coming up with a 6 rotation for 100 points now, wait till then.
Just to let you know, I looked it up, and yes, he was the May player
Throughout the
throughout
series.
all of the Philadelphia match, except what's weird is it says he played 4 maps, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it appears here he played 5.
Which series? Did they play twice?
Yeah. Is this just showing us their highest one?
This is just their highest single game.
Well, I'm assuming that he probably played the May then too. But yeah, he's getting some pretty good damage on it. And EQO's also playing the May throughout most of this too.
Mm-hmm. One other person that I want to point out, and this is somebody who this week is, I'm dubbing it my sleeper of the week, Taimu.
I don't think so. Wasn't there an update? I know Dallas Fuel's been hiring like people to report on news. Didn't they just release something about Taimu going to see split time moving forward?
Yeah,
That's
they,
when I saw
they
them.
said that
And-
AKM was only sitting out because
Ah,
of some sort of family
Mhm.
issue, and that he'd be coming back and splitting time with Taimu. So
Right.
oh,
don't touch either of those guys with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, but
Now, what about
I will
Zach?
say, like
what about Zachary though?
out of all the
Maybe.
DPS players, Taimu surprised the hell out of me with his performance this week, putting up close to 185 points in
Yeah,
those
he was
4
the
maps
number 8.
against the Valiant. Crazy.
He was the number 8 DPS for a single match for the entire week. Like, he did better than fantasy-wise than Decay did in any match. So, like, Taimu, if he's playing, he's going to put up the numbers. But if that's the case, where he's actually going to be splitting time, then yeah, don't.
Yeah, I will say though, like across the board, Fuel against the Valiant did put up some pretty big point totals, especially when you consider that 3 of their players were in top 25 at that point. So, not something that we're used to seeing, at least with Dallas Fuel in fantasy. So outside of that, just looking at some of the other performances, were there any other standouts to you guys in regards to the overall fantasy impact? Maybe some sleeper picks that panned out, things like that.
I think just going with Unko on Fuel, like we were just talking about, where Unko had a really, really good game against the Valiant, even when he seems like the kind of player when we look at his point totals, like even when they're losing, he still puts up decent points. So he did very well for me. I was impressed with that. And then realistically, like going through it again, FRD for him being such a low value this week actually did like okay. I don't know what our base for okay is right now, like whether or not, because like with the high noon system, it was kind of like everybody about hit 100. And then with this system, it's like it really varies like by person, because like the good like top tier DPS are just the ones who consistently hit like around 150, and then the ones who are like mid-level are your 112s, your 120s.
Yeah, like it seems like there's a lot of peaks of like 200 for like really strong performances. But I would say like 130 to 150 is definitely on not necessarily the top run, but above average across the board for most positions.
Yeah. I know I talked about this last week, but Moira play. We did see a good amount of Moira play this week, and that's why I said last week that Aid was my sleeper pick last week, and it panned out. Like he had 2 matches. He was the number 9 support player overall for the week, and like the number 12 in both his matches, and he is a main support. So this is an anomaly that he was out there, but
Moira
he was
plays
playing
up.
Moira.
Yeah, it's up 31 to 31% last week. It made another jump of 13%, so there might be more and more Moira played throughout the stage.
And it's
Yeah,
crazy
exactly.
too when you think that this week we had actually 3 support heroes that saw above 40% pick rate.
And you got to
which is
think
another
about
interesting thing to note.
Baptiste play too.
Mm-hmm.
If your main support like Arc is playing Baptiste, I mean Arc scored 150 points, which is pretty dang good for main support.
Yeah, it's you got to look at what characters they play, because certain, like not every team, the Moira is going to be the main healer, or the Baptiste is going to be the main healer switching over. So it's kind of on a team by team basis almost at this point. But Moira, and I'm going to stick by this until they prove me wrong, but Moira, if she's played every map, if let's say she becomes ultimate meta, like Lucio in stage 1 and 2 type of situation, Moira will be whoever plays Moira will be fantasy gods. Just from the healing and the damage output, passive damage output, really, that she can put out, that she will be a fantasy god. So like keep an eye out on who's actually playing Moira, and those people can kind of be safe, cheaper bets. Like Aid, now Aid is not going to probably put out 151 points every week. That's an anomaly. But if you need I need to find a support for 114 points, but there's no starting flex supports that are going to start every map, that are out there for 14 points, but Aid probably is a better option than someone who might not start every map. So definitely keep an eye on stuff like that. The Moira play, I think, is going to play a more important role for the next 3 weeks.
Right on. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at what some of the player levels are going to be for this current week. So, obviously when we're kind of like looking at like who we're interested in picking up, we're always kind of like looking at, maybe players that are worth a gamble just due to a very low cost, maybe players that just haven't really been worked in. So, like, I know for me personally, just seeing how the Hanjo Spark have done, like, I'm always curious, like, is this going to be the week that they're going to pull the trigger on Bozzy? Because right now he's only at 6 points, but, like, that's a very big risk to take. But, you also have players like Persia. Obviously, Boston has kind of been, like, all over the place with their support duos. And I know Boston is pretty on top of things with their social media in regards to their starting lineup, so that could be a potential sleeper pick as well. But looking across the board, like, who are some of the standout players in regards to the value based on their overall player cost? So Ramses, why don't you go ahead and break things down for us?
The big one for me is Erster. In that, for what you're actually getting, Erster's only 17 points. When going into these, I expected him to be like 20 or more.
Mm-hmm.
Just like he's not. They're not going to run anybody. They're not going to run Enlar in front of him or Baby Bay in front of him. He's going to be out there all the time, and we've seen him have like a very, very heavy point impact. Him, another high person for me. I know that's kind of one of the things we have with the system is that, like, if a guy does really well 1 week, it kind of takes a little bit for him to decay out of the system.
Right.
So I always, like I said it last week, but just you got to be watchful with people like Fate from the Mayhem, where Fate had like a monster, like 200 plus game. And that game is single-handedly keeping him in like the top, I would say like 15. He in like the upper level of like the buy-in rates just because he had a really, really good game a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, like Fate is the same price as Gods right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Fate. Void is still like 17 is probably good for there. FRD going up to 16 is actually interesting for me, just because for the point totals he did get, they were good, but they weren't like stellar. So 16 seems a little expensive for me for him.
Well, I mean, Stellar's not playing.
I think Zachary at 14 points is a pretty good steal because he's good at play.
Zach's a good steal at 14. Stratus at 15, I think, is worth a look if you need him. And I have a question for you guys. What do you think about Luffy being only 15 points for Shanghai this week?
I mean, Izayaki could play.
That's what I'm weary about. Like, you're taking Luffy at a risk that, okay, Shanghai's coming off, I wouldn't say a down week, but not their best week. Maybe they throw Izayaki in there. Or try something different. Or they split time. Or do something like that. Like, Luffy is someone I would stay away from at this point.
Mm.
There are certain characters that you just stay away from. Like, that you think will do great. Like, Luffy is one of them. DM's another one.
I think Arc is a good steal at 14 points also.
Yeah,
Mangachu, 14 points if you think he's going to play, if you think he's going to continue to start.
Yeah. I think Guido at 14 is a massive steal. Because you're getting a flex support that's playing all the maps right now at the same price you can get Arc for, or Jae Hong, or like you have two really good flex supports for 14 points this week in Gray and Guido, and then Marcus.
Mm-hmm. I do actually think I might have found the steal of the week so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, Totem. Is Hureg starting all 4 maps for Vancouver on a consistent basis right now?
Yeah, but Hureg also shit the bed this past week.
He did.
He put up like 70 points.
And before he was playing Widow. So if they go back to their Widow Genji play, Haxel is the one you want to pick, not Hureg.
I would go Hureg,
point-
Haxel over Hureg all the time, but Hureg's only 12 points.
Yeah, the point differential between the two, so it'd be like 8 or 9 in regards to the cost.
Yeah, but if he plays Widow, I just don't think he gets a ton of points. If he plays Hanzo, but they were most successful with the Widow Genji. They might be going back to that next week.
Yeah, I would say
When they beat Florida when he was playing Widow, he got 120 points.
Which is
which
about
is
average.
still
Yeah, it's
kind
not
of
bad.
below average.
Yeah,
Like
not-
when you look at it,
He's a
think-
sleeper for me that he could do really, really well.
yeah.
But
I
I'm
think
not confident.
I think Tank this week has some definite sleepers. I do like Michelle at 16 points. I really like Hotba at 15.
Yeah.
I just really like I really like Hotba at 15. Tank Gargoyle at 16 is not a bad option. He's kind of given Florida, like, as odd as this sounds, is they've looked different, and the only change they made was putting Gargoyle in for Zephyr, and that just seemed to make all the difference in the world. Twilight's at 16 points. And after week 1, where he sat out that entire series, he's played every map since then.
Right.
So you're like Unco and Twilight, both 16 apiece. That's not horrible. You're getting 2 flex supports right there for 16 apiece. Like, there are definitely people that are way overpriced that you can do just as good not having.
Now, if Izzyaki started, he would be the steal of the week at 0 points.
But that would be the ultimate, oh god.
Well,
What did I-
to be fair, that's also an error because the minimum should be 5.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to go all out on like the end layer for 6 points, Stellar 6 points, Persia 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
You got I can't even say Quartermain because he's just gonna get benched half the time.
Yeah, he'll play like map 1 if anything, and then not C play.
Yeah.
Are there any players that you guys are avoiding because of a specifically high cost this week?
I wouldn't
Ooh.
say avoiding them for a high cost, but there's a flex support that I will probably avoid because of their low cost. I'm not really feeling Hagopen even at 12 points.
They're still
especially when
splitting him.
They are, and it's not just that, but it's just like when you compare him to the field, regardless of the split time, he's kind of always been middling out at this point, and I feel like we've seen more flex supports really emerge, or even main supports that have put in up higher point totals comparatively. And like Hurrig is another person that I'm honestly going to ignore after they just got bodied. I don't know if the Titans are going to go back to what worked for them in week 1, or if they're going to keep trying to force a mirror match, which they did not look that great on. But again, part of that was also Corey just having this superstar caliber performance, very similar to what Haxel had done to the Mayhem that week prior. But like in regards to like overall, I'm always very iffy about like spending 20 plus points on any individual player, regardless of how they've been doing, unless they've been averaging like 170 plus, and then they're definitely worth a very hard consideration at that point.
Yeah, for me, there's only one DPS player that I would spend over 20 points on, and it's probably not the one you guys might think, but EQO is
The one we were all thinking.
Yeah, that one? Yeah.
Well, it's not the Carpe, the Prophet, the Haxel. EQO, I would spend 20 plus on. I wouldn't spend 20 plus on any of the tanks, so no Space, no Elsa. And I don't know if I'd spend 20 plus on Flex support. I would probably spend 20 plus on at least one. Like I would go Violet or Shaz. to be honest.
I think Shaz would be the safest play for that tier of points, just based on his overall performances that we have seen. And Gladiators are usually pretty strong fantasy options.
Yeah.
How do we feel about Jake at 18 points?
No.
That's the thing, is like I don't feel safe, especially with Linkster being in this whole week. I don't feel safe with him still being at that price.
Right, and Outlaws are a team that basically said, like, hey, we're going to be starting Jake every map, and then they go against that. Like, this is a team that talked up their somber play for, that week with Dante and how Dante was performing out of his mind, only to just completely abandon it the following week. So it's just, I'm very cautious with the majority of players outside of Spree and Raucus for the Outlaws across the board.
Yeah. You know what's
One thing
surprising?
you might be careful of is Haxel
Mm-hmm.
costing 20. If you're betting that they're going to go back to the Genji and try that again, he could be a really good pick, but I would say stay away from him because it looks like they're set with their playoff spot and they want to get some practice on the meta. That's all I can think of as to what happened, really. Like, they were not playing what they're good at, but maybe they're trying to get good at it before the actual playoffs come.
Question for you guys, and I think I kind of know your answer. Spark players. Avoid them all?
They're in a free fall at the moment.
Well, like right now, Godsby this week is going to cost 17 points. So you could get Erster or Godsby.
I would go Erster.
Yeah. Bebe's 19 points, whereas if you spend 20, you can get Violet, Kariv, or Dogman. Or you can go 18, you get Bedoshin or Jonak. Like, I don't think there's any Spark players worth picking up. The only exception might be is if you need to re-up. If you need that off tank. But the thing is he's not even starting every map at off tank.
So the Ed, I would not partake in any Spark player for the week.
What about Crystal? Can I start Crystal this week?
No.
You can. He is on
I mean,
the
yeah, you're
board,
free to
but
spend
he's
your points.
My
Yeah, go
DPS
ahead.
my DPS lineup of Crystal and Munchkin's gonna be so good this week.
Are you going to start like Funny Astro? Who are some other two-way players that aren't actually playing with their teams right now?
Elk.
Gator, Funny Astro,
Elk.
Elk,
Elk.
and Swan.
Swan's
There you go.
actually playing.
I know, but he's not gonna score any points. So
You're going to start Striker.
Striker might play. You never know.
No. Not since he requested a trade on stream.
Yeah, the angry bench boy team of him.
Reddit reading into things as per usual.
The angry bench boy team of him, Daco, Aim God, and like a bunch of other people actually might be decent.
Absolutely. But anyways, guys, let's take a look at some of the games that we're going to focus on for this week's Pick'em. So I'm going to set the table, and I want to get your guys' takes on how you think this match is going to play out. So looking at Thursday at 7:30 Pacific time, we have the Toronto Defiant, who are currently ranked 18th, going up against the 20th ranked Florida Mayhem. And I know what you guys are thinking. Why would I pick this game? You know what, guys? In a meta like this, there's a lot more at stake for these teams when you think about the future. Mayhem have, got new life due to, Gargoyle. Defiant have been really stepping out of their shells. Logix has been doing some work. Fantasy points have been through the roof for that team. This is the first time that we're going to get to see these two teams face off against one another. So with that being said, Bob, who do you feel like is going to have the upper hand in this series?
Well, I tweeted it out at the start of the stage, but this is the first time that the Overwatch League has teams with nothing to lose. This is the first time we don't have a stage playoff. So they are statistically, there are two teams that were statistically eliminated from playoffs. That was
There's three now.
who's the third? Help me out.
Toronto.
Okay, so this is like just these teams have neither of them have anything to lose, but teams with nothing to lose are definitely scary. I think Toronto takes this though. Can Lightning really strike twice in 2 weeks? I don't know, but I think Toronto takes this if they play Mangachu the whole time.
Yeah, well, we did see the DPS duo for Mayhem really step up here last week in the mirror matches. But Ed, how are you feeling about this match? Who are you favoring?
I'm gonna go with the Shock on this one.
They're not playing.
Oh God.
We're talking Defiant Mayhem.
Boom.
Oh, okay, no.
I would go in the shot for the shock in that game as well.
Ed's trying to jump ahead, guys. This is what's happening.
Someone just texted me about the Disney just announced a new bundle for Disney Plus.
Yeah, dude.
With Hulu and ESPN. But that's
Yes.
besides the point. We're talking Defiant versus Mayhem.
I'm
Who you
going
got?
Mayhem. I'm going Mayhem. I think the DPS duo of BQB and Saya player will outshine the Toronto DPS players, and I think Gargoyle being that it factor for that team. One thing has become abundantly clear with the Florida Mayhem is they need new support players. I think they're almost at the point of they're almost at the Washington Justice level of, hey, like 2 of my 3 are pretty good. Like for the Justice, their support and DPS duo really good. Tank line shit. For the Mayhem, their DPS duo and I think their tank duo will be real good, but their support is crap. I think the Florida Mayhem are on their way up, depending on, regardless of what random city in Florida they decide to call their home city. They're probably
cities they're actually doing.
It's actually just the swampland. It's no actual city.
They're just swamp people.
Mhm.
Florida Mayhem are swamp people, confirmed. They're taking bath salts. They're I don't know what else. Florida man. But I'm gonna go with the Florida Mayhem on this one. It's gonna be one of those matches where I can easily see it being a 5-map series.
Mhm.
So I think fantasy wise, either Defiant or Mayhem players in this matchup, I think will be good calls.
All right, so you feel
Because
like
they'll
their
be
stock will
going
be
to-
higher.
Their stock will be higher because they'll be, in my mind, they'll be going to a map 5. But I think the Mayhem will edge it out.
So now that you got, that blurb out of the way, let's actually talk about the Shock for our next match on Friday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. We have the 3rd ranked San Francisco Shock going up against the 9th ranked Shanghai Dragons. Now looking back, the Shock are up 2-1 against the Dragons this season. With that loss coming in the Stage 3 Finals, aka the final Stage Finals at this point. So Dragons this past week, they kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock against Toronto Defiant, and they lost that series 2-1. And, it's been interesting watching the Shock kind of being the only, big 3 team not to stumble out of the gate with the introduction of Rollock in the Overwatch League.
Actually, extremely surprising.
Yeah. Now, looking at the Dragons, something that's been pretty noticeable is kind of the way that they've been splitting the time between their DPS. So far, we see him play in 2-game weeks, and, there's times when we see Dane's basically in there full time. So Dane is either going to be in there with DM, or, in the next set, he would be in there with Yunjin, but this is actually a 1-game week for the Dragons, so are they going to stick to just a core 2, or are they going to mix and match a little bit? So that's definitely something to keep an eye on in this particular series. But Ramses, let's start with you. With the way that the Shock have kind of been building this momentum, are you favoring them in this series?
I'm going to go with the Mayhem on this one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a lot of mayhem.
It probably will be. I still think San Francisco takes it just because we know they're figuring out their way. They have figured out how to do their way of 2-2-2. And I just think that while Shanghai has such a tremendously high skill ceiling, I still think off tank is a potential weakness for them at this point. When you compare it to like how well Choi has been doing on the Hog and Dio for the past couple weeks, it's going to be close. I still think San Francisco takes it. It's going to be 3-2, in my opinion.
I don't know if it's going to be as close as you're making it out to be, but Ed, how are you feeling about this one?
I think 3-1 at best in the Shock's favor. I'm not that high on the Dragons this stage. Like, people love, the DPS core for the Shanghai Dragons, but they're not as effective in this meta that we're seeing. You have Ding on Pharah, which is great, but then you have a lot of Pharah doesn't fit that great into this meta. Like, we saw, like, one thing that surprised us, and we talked about this after week 1, where we saw such a decrease in Pharah play, where Ding was still using Pharah. And I think Ramsey's also nailed it on the head, is their off tank is just completely in flux. So it shows that the Shanghai Dragons are 1-2. They lost to Toronto Defiant this past week. I think it's gonna be a 3-1 on this one. I think the Shock are kind of like testing things out. That's the only reason I give the Dragons a shot, is if the Shock go full Vancouver, New York, since they already have it, booked.
So they get 4-0'd?
Yeah. Hi, guy. But if they could just sandbag it, and be testing things out and working on comms, they may not want to show too much.
So Sinatra is going to come out on Reinhardt.
I mean, it could be.
As long as Sinatra continues to stay benched for all games except for one map in each of the things, like, they're going to still continue to do good, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think we kind of are seeing the rise of Architect, not only from what we saw this past week, but from the preemptive. He made South Korea's Overwatch World Cup team over way better DPS. Like, he made it over what a lot of us consider better DPS. But, like, he went from the bench on the Shock to starting for the South Korea World Cup team. There's a reason for that. There's something we're not seeing that's going on behind the scenes. And that's what they're going for.
Like,
now,
Titans players not playing good on other teams.
Shock has played DPS all over the place. They've been playing Striker too. So
what
they're rotating between 4 DPS. So if you're talking fantasy wise, I don't know how smart it is to play any of them, even Architect. It might have just been a map thing for that week.
Fantasy wise, like individual players, but pick'ems, I'm still going with the Shock. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Architect being like their new main DPS.
I would agree.
Even then, I think the only safe picks to play for San Francisco right now are still just going to be Violet and Choi.
Yep.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
I think an emergency Moth. Like, not a very good option, but he's going to be playing every map.
Right.
Yeah.
And just not benched. But anyways, moving into Saturday at 5:15 p.m. Pacific time, we have the 12th ranked Toronto Hunters going up against the 4th ranked, but probably plummeting in the ranks pretty soon, the Hangzhou Spark. Alright, now let me hit you with some records here. So yes, Spark did win the last game against the Hunters. Spark across the board against these Chinese and Korean teams. I'm talking about like Seoul in this case, not like London and New York. Like Pacific region. The Spark are 5-1 this season. Pretty good across the board. But we did just see the Hunters upstage New York Excelsior this past week, hand in NYXL their first 4-0 loss in Overwatch League history. And we have seen Spark dealing with a lot of issues with, a particular player, that being Crystal. And they've kind of been... They've lost a lot of momentum. Like, they were one of the best 3-3 teams, and they have just not transitioned to the role lock good at all. Like, honestly, I would say, like, if I were to rank the Spark right now, in regards to how they are doing in this current meta, they'd probably be 17th through 20th at this point. Whereas the Hunters have definitely found kind of like more at home, but they've already been a team that had been running a DPS prior. And I know, looking back, you and I had kind of like discussed how we thought the Spark would be doing, and I didn't put a lot of stock value in the Spark going into this new meta, and I made that prediction that the Spark would not finish in the top 6, and the Spark are really in the danger zone right now. So there could be a lot of fluctuation from like 12 all the way up
danger zone
to 4th place. But Bob, I want to get your get your take on the. No, it's all good. I want to get your take on this series, just knowing that the momentum. Maybe the better way to put it is there's kind of been like this paradigm shift due to the role lock introduction to the Overwatch League. So, are you favoring the Hunters in this meta?
I think it's crystal clear that the Spark are gonna lose, and it's become increasingly apparent in these last 2 weeks that if you don't have at least one DPS carry that is not carrying the game, but what I say by that is just like one of your best players, like mechanically, it's so important to have at least one. Mm-hmm. And the teams that are doing really good have two. They were talking about Washington Justice, and everybody was talking about Corey, but nobody paid attention to oh dang it, Stratus. Mm-hmm. Like Stratus was facilitating so many things and just hard carrying. And without Crystal there, I don't know that they have that option. And with Crystal, with the way he left, it also has to affect team morale. So I think Chengdu takes this for sure.
All right, Ramses, how are you feeling about this one?
I'm pretty sure Chengdu takes this. When you look at Hangzhou, the only team that could possibly be more mentally boomed in the league right now would probably just be the Dallas Fuel. It's like there's no, when they're out there, it just is not clicking at all.
Fuel's bad, man.
We know that like Hangzhou has these DPS players that are capable of really high level play, but it's just not showing up right now. And we know before they were kind of holding on to like, we're going to still run goats as like this meta goes out into stage 4, and then stage 4 is here. Now they don't really know what to do. Chengdu has still looked really, really good. Jinmu's looked great. Elsa's looked really good. I think Chengdu takes it 3-1, if that.
All right, well, moving into Sunday, we have a very intriguing match at 5:15 p.m. Pacific time between the 11th ranked Guangzhou Charge and the 2nd ranked New York Excelsior. All right, guys, so NYXL probably not living up to expectations in regards to 2-2-2. This is going to be the first time that these two teams meet this season. Charge are basically kind of like firing on all cylinders right now. They've been gaining a lot of ground in regards to the rankings, and with the momentum that they have, they can get a pretty sizable seed for the play-in tournament. Now, NYXL, they're sitting pretty comfortable in the top 6. They pretty much got that locked up. They really don't have a ton of competition in their division, so really no threats on that end. But this has been a team that's still kind of been a clown fiesta in regards to these DPS rotations, where we got to see a little bit of Flower this past week, who didn't look all that great. We've seen SBB popping in here and there. Libero hasn't been the flex god that we've kind of known him to be, so there's still a lot of question marks about the NYXL, but do you guys feel like they're going to be able to rebound against a team like the Charge? And let's go ahead and start with you on this one.
For the sake of the Charge, I hope not. This is good. This is a big week for the Charge. Like, they have to go 1-1 minimum to make the playoffs. Even just make the top 12. Like, they're playing so well right now, but you gotta remember they're at the bottom. Like, right now they're in 11th place. They're tied with the Hunters. And, if they go and if they play Seoul, they play New York, and then I forgot who they play next week. They need to win this game. I also think, honestly, that they actually will win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the Charge will win this game. I think New York has a lot of, I don't want to call it sandbagging in them, but it's
more
just
growing pains.
I don't even go with that. It's, what do they have to play for? Like let's be real. Like, they have a 2-game lead for second place in the playoffs.
Oh.
So to be a top 2 seed,
it's based. Well, they're obviously winning their division.
Yeah,
and that's
so
what gives
they're
them
gonna
the second seed.
They have
that locked up. They have nothing to lose by losing this matchup. So why not screw around? Why not bring in Flower? Why not bring in Pine? Why not? Don't give anyone what you're actually gonna do if it has no adverse effects on you.
And I don't even think it goes down to that. I think really the problem with NYXL and the problem with NYXL last year is coaching. Looking from the outside in, they have extremely skilled players. Yet, for some reason, they cannot figure out a meta to save their life. And they might be trying new things, but I was talking to Volamil yesterday. I don't know why I can't say his name, but he's like, why is Libero playing Sombra? And I'm like, I don't know, because they were practicing SBB on it for the entire stage prior. Why didn't they play SBB in the stage 3 finals? It seems like New York has a big disconnect, and I think it's in the front office. I don't think it's with the players' skills. I think coaches are not doing their proper job in training players, and there's a lot of teams that are doing that really well.
Right, and you're also not seeing that too, Bob, from like the other Korean teams, at least with the slow adaptation with the meta shifts that we are seeing.
The thing with New York that scares me is more, and granted, this is my own personal philosophy on it. I feel like if you're New York, you can't afford to like take games off realistically and to not try, because we've seen like when they have that approach, they have a really hard time turning it back on again and getting back into that like synchronicity, firing on all cylinders, like we're all like moving as one. And then when that happens, we see like Jonak play badly. We see some bad play from Meko or for some of the DPS. Like,
that's y'all are mad you traded Arc. Whoops.
Animo's not.
Yeah, Animo's doing just fine.
He's not doing as good as Arc is.
Animo's not the problem.
Speaking of
the
players to avoid at all costs, do not start Meko when he's only putting up like 60, 70 points. It's been rough.
Yeah.
Like, besides Jonak.
And Jonak's not even Jonak. This last
like,
year.
I mean, I would still start Jonak if need be, because he's a flex support that's going to play all the maps.
Yeah, but I mean, we're like right here. We're just talking about who's winning, and Jonak has definitely not been an eye turner on Anna. So I think Guangzhou Charge takes it.
Yep.
I think New York does some weird stuff again, and Charge takes it.
Yeah, I do too.
On Push the Point, we referred to Nero as the prince that was promised because he's like everything. No, he's like everything we thought we were gonna get out of Zachary, and instead it actually came out with Nero. Like, the guy has been putting up such great performances and also really good point totals, which is also weird because we talk about like Guangzhou's like a Chinese team that is making a lot of effort to appeal to to more like Western fans, which is really interesting. And so like the one Western DPS they have on there is the guy who's like becoming the big person for that team.
And aren't they the team that likes to try and use comms in in English. In
They
that?
come in English, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would almost put the Charge as the second best DPS duo, at least fantasy wise, behind the Fusion.
Yeah, fantasy wise for sure.
Fantasy wise, like Nero and Happy.
It more just depends if they keep Happy in for the entire time as well. Because that's the thing, is that there's been, like, lately, when they get up by enough, they'll switch him out and they'll put Eileen in.
Just remember, if they don't go up 3-0, you're not going to see Fraggy and Bishu because it's not... they're not going for a sweep at that point.
The one caveat to starting Hoppa.
Oh, yeah, that was annoying. Shu. Oh. Shu has become, like, a silent but deadly flex support player.
Coming on, everybody, come on, ride. No, I screwed it up. I couldn't
There's
remember
like-
how
That
the
was like
song
two different
went.
songs you were trying to sing at the same time there, Bob.
Yeah, it's like the Space Jam song I was trying to
Come on,
do, I
ride that
think.
Shu. Yeah, no, it doesn't really work out.
You just come on, ride that train, shoo shoo. No, is that? I have no idea.
Yeah,
but
because they don't go choo choo in that one, or come on, ride that train. Ooh, no.
yeah,
Yeah,
something like
you
that,
can't fit choo in there.
Yeah,
but-
we're...
Shoo shoo.
You guys are trying, but you're just stumbling through it.
Failing, yeah.
Just like NYXL stumbling, trying to figure out this meta.
It is
at
a
this point.
very good comparison to what
They
just
see me
happened right there.
rolling, They hating.
Nope,
That's
we're
what they should come
continuing
out
on
to.
the NYXL. Yeah, we're continuing on the NYXL.
There you go. Alright, well, with that being said, guys, we are going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. You know, we also do like reviews for other podcasts and apps, but iTunes is the go-to. Any sort of feedback or constructive criticism is always welcomed, just because that will offer us insight on how we can improve the show. So if you guys want to find additional content, be sure to check out Overwatch Recall, where you can find a list of Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, another fantasy Overwatch League podcast, not that there's, you know, that many. So that's on our website, and then every Sunday we do the episodic listings as part of the weekly Recall. So to stay up to date with all of that, either be on our Discord, over on Twitter at OWRecall, or find the podcast directory at owlnshow.com/OWRecall. Now, if you guys like to support us, you can do so a number of different ways. We do stream multiple times a week over on Twitch, so we do appreciate any Twitch Prime subs, as well as normal subs at, $4.99 a month. We also have our Patreon, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month, and you can find more info on that over at patreon.com/OWLnetwork. So you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Joe Zabal, Owl, and Kesha in helping our network grow. So I want to thank everyone again.
You just called her Kesha.
Your point? You keep repeating the same thing every time.
I know. And I
To
love
be-
that you call her Kesha.
To be fair, she always tells us to pronounce it that way.
Oh, see, I ignored that and I just call her Kesha regardless of what
Yeah.
it says.
I just find it funny that Ed always has to mention the same
Always
thing
has
over
to.
and over.
It's going down.
He's a broken record.
It's going timber.
Yeah.
You better move.
But we appreciate
She's yelling timber. It's not going timber. She's yelling
Yelling it.
timber.
I'm
Well, there you
sorry,
go.
I don't know
You
every word
stand
of the
corrected.
Kesha song.
You better move, better dance, something like that.
Well,
Yep. You got it.
with that being said, guys, and why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know where they can get a hold of us over on social media.
All right, well, you can reach us through email on contact@owlnshow.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at OWL by the numbers. We do have a website, very new, updated, awesome website that everyone needs to go check out, and that's OWLnshow.com. I know Spider posted his first article up there today. Totem has been posting every news update there, and sooner or later, since I was given access to post stuff on the website,
If we have any
some
issues,
Ednar stuff.
assume it's
Ballsy.
Ed effing up.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna be horrible. Horribly awesome. I'm gonna Colin Cowherd and Skip Bayless the hell out of that.
So you're gonna make really outlandish takes that are wrong the whole time?
Yeah, it's what I do, but it gets you talking. You can go over and see all our stuff on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, and that's at discord.me/OWLN Show. We are streaming presently live on Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/OWLN Show. So we are Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Amazon Prime subs, always appreciated. Like Torben said, we do stream pretty regularly, so Overwatch League, Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. This show, OWL by the Numbers, is Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Heroes Never Die, the show Totem and myself do, is Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams when available, run on a flex schedule, but they tended to be Mondays before Overwatch League Network, and then Thursday nights. So just follow us on Discord, follow us on Twitter, and you'll be able to find all that fun stuff out. We, like Totem also said, we do have Patreon. That's patreon.com/OWL Network. So come over there, help us out. Any additional help would be greatly appreciated. Random thought of the week.
Oh.
Oh, it's a thought, not a question.
Yes, it is a thought and more of a statement. Clapping is just like hitting yourself because you like something.
No.
It is. You're hitting yourself. By clapping, you're actually physically hitting yourself.
Well, like,
because you like something.
I've never heard anyone say when I am clapping, "Hey, stop hitting yourself."
Well, now you're gonna think.
But I used to hear that when my dad grabbed my hand and slapped my face.
But the
That's
thing
what
is next
Hit
time you're
yourself, Bobby.
clapping, next time you're clapping, you're gonna be like, "Damn it, Ed! Now I'm thinking I'm just trying to hit myself while I'm making myself happy."
I'm pretty sure I'm never going to think that.
Well, when we're all at BlizzCon, I'm gonna point that out to you when we start clapping when teams come on stage.
Oh, I don't clap. I
Well-
whistle. So don't stand next to me if you like your eardrums.
I'll just clap next to your ear. I'll get you back. I'll be like,
I think you underestimate the pitch of my whistle.
"Oh, are you a two-finger whistler?" Oh, yeah. Okay, so some do it like this, and
Yep.
some do it like. Yeah.
My
No,
dad does it like this. It's not as loud, but it's cooler.
Yeah, my mom does it with like the thumb and the pinky underneath. I could never do it to save my life.
Yeah, he does thumb and middle finger.
Podcasting at its finest.
Hey Ed, where can they find you on Twitter?
You can reach me on Twitter, and that's at Edinar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. Ramses, where can they find you?
You can find me in Ednar's tweets normally because every week is just me and him arguing at least once a week for
Minimum once a week.
minimum once a week. And the name on those tweets is going to be Ramses_OW. And you can find the show that I do for Overwatch League with my co-host Labosco over at PushPointPod.
Perfect. Bob, what about you? Where can people get a hold of you on social media?
You can get a hold of me and find out everything I do on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Totem, where can we find you?
Well, I'm also on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR, and if you guys need to whistle, make sure you do it in the general direction of the teams that aren't paying any attention to the meta. That would be great. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much again for hanging out with us tonight on another episode of OWL by the Numbers. This has been episode number 27. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Blazin' Bob, Edinar, and Ramses. And we hope to see you guys back tomorrow night for our next episode of Heroes Never Die. Take care, and have a good night.
Good night, sweetheart.
Adios.
Well,
Good night,
it's
everybody.
time to go.